Copy of God's Word, I want to go ahead and invite you to open them up to John chapter 5. As we make our way to John chapter 5, I came across a story recently out of Portland, Oregon. There was an amusement park or festival happening, and at this amusement park, there was this special ride that was built called the Atmosphere. You can look up on the screen, and this is what it looks like. It's Atmosphere, F-E-A-R. Any thrill seekers here in the house today? Yeah, a few out here. Well, this thing, you can see what happens here. It'll actually flip you upside down as you're spinning around. Anyone would do this? You guys are wild. You guys are wild humans. So that ride was going on, and all of a sudden it malfunctioned. It lost power, and it malfunctioned and lost power as the people were literally upside down. Now, this didn't just happen for a couple of seconds, not even like a minute or two. This was for 30 minutes. It made nationwide news coverage. People were hanging on for dear life. This is not what they thought when they were thinking of thrill, you know? They paid for this. They stood in line for this. They brought their kids onto this ride for that experience. And they're hanging in there. The only thing holding them were these rinky-dink harnesses. And which is, by the way, this is confirmation from my wife, Katie, of why she'll never get on something like this. She says, if they can build it at the festival, like in a couple of days, there's no reason to trust my life with this thing. Anyone say amen to this? Okay, I think this confirms why she'll never do this. And so the fire department comes, grateful for our first responders, by the way, grateful for them. Otherwise, we're stuck. We're stuck. All right, so fire department comes, they save the day, they lower the atmosphere, and people walk off. They had lost feeling in their legs, as you can imagine. All kinds of blood was rushing to their heads. Some were hospitalized because of it. There was one 18-year-old that was interviewed after getting off the ride, and she was in tears as she's describing how it felt like this was it. It felt like this was the way it was going to end, and she started thinking about all the things she was going to miss out on, the graduation that was happening a couple months from then, and the person she was going to marry, and her future. It was all going to end because of the atmosphere. I think the thing that stuck with me when it comes to this story is how these 28 humans were stuck, and there was nothing they could do to get themselves unstuck. Let me ask you a question. You could take that picture off the screen. Have you ever been stuck? I'm not just saying on a ride at an amusement park. I'm not just talking about you were stuck in a traffic jam or stuck running out of gas. I'm saying, have you been stuck? Like stuck in something that's had a grip on you for years. Stuck in a toxic relationship, stuck in unforgiveness, stuck in bitterness, stuck in some addiction, stuck in some sin that you've been dealing with since you were in middle school, stuck in continuing trying to get love by achievement and people pleasing and approval. I'm talking stuck. Have y'all ever been stuck? And it gets to this place when you get stuck that you start asking the same questions that the 18-year-old girl was asking after the ride. Like, is this really how it's going to end for me? Is this how my future is going to look? Is this where everything is headed? Just more and more of being stuck in my shame, stuck in exhaustion, stuck in overwhelm. Well, today we come to a story in the Gospel of John. As we continue this series, it's not over. What we're doing in the Gospel of John over the next several weeks is we're looking at these moments where it looked like it was over, that is until Jesus showed up. And then in John chapter 5, we meet a person who never thought they'd have a personal encounter with God. And this was a person who had been stuck. And I'm not talking just for a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes. This was a person that had been stuck for years and years, and Jesus comes to meet with this person. Today, what I want to talk about is what gets us stuck, what keeps us stuck, what gets us free, and what keeps us free. And I've got a lot of anticipation around this passage, around today. Maybe you didn't come today anticipating that God was going to move in your life, but I came in today anticipating that God was going to move in your life. And that today is going to be a different day. As a matter of fact, some of you might remember this, some of you don't. You weren't here yet, but about 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, I tried to preach from this text. And instead, I sensed like what I needed to do was talk about how I was stuck and how God had set me free. And I never actually got to preaching like the ins and outs of the text. And we just opened the altar, and what was supposed to be 2 services just turned into one really long service. Like over 30 people got baptized spontaneously that day. People were confessing sin. People were coming to Christ. It was a special day. There was just an outpouring of Holy Spirit. And so I come today with honestly a bit of holy trepidation of like something about this text, something that we need today. Something that you need today. You didn't know you needed it. Some of you have been in denial for a long time. Some of you have been hiding it for a long time. And I'm just saying, maybe today, can we just not talk about miracles? Can we ask God for a miracle in our lives to set us free, to restore us, to heal us, to do only what He can do? Anyone ready for that today? Let's go. We're just going to walk through the text. That's all we're going to do. John 5, verse 1. There's like 14 verses. Let's roll. You with me? Good. Let's go. You'll get with me. You'll get with God. That's more important. So sometime later, Jesus, he went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now, there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Now, you do some research on this specific text in this specific story, and there's actually there was a lot of controversy around this text because in antiquity, which means in the old times, students, like back in Jesus' day, in antiquity, there was no such thing as a 5-sided pool. And yet there's a pool here that says there's 5 colonnades. But back in that day, there were no such things as a pool, like a pentagon-shaped pool. There was no such thing. And so there was a lot of debate on the historicity of this path. Oh, this is just a fairy tale. This is made up. That was until the 1800s. Archaeologists went to the old city of Jerusalem, and they found the pool. And don't you love it when like archaeology and science and math, they actually prove the Bible is actually what it is? You know, I just love those moments. It would have looked something like this. The 5 sides, it's not a pentagon-shaped pool. The 5th is in the middle, and so there's actually a couple pools. This is a rendering of what the pool of Bethesda would have looked like. And it's interesting that it's named the pool of Bethesda. The word Bethesda, check this out, it literally means house of grace. So, clue, this whole story is grace. From the pool to the man to Jesus to you and me, the whole story is a story of grace. Do not miss that point. Because remember that every miracle isn't just about the miracle, it's about what it's pointing to. What this is pointing to, it's grace. Now check out verse 3. We're told in verse 3, here, a great number of people used to lie. The blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. Check out verse 5. And one who had been there, an invalid, had been there 38, one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. That word invalid, it's not really a word that we use all that often. Invalid. Likely this was a person that was crippled or broken in some way. A lot of us don't know what that's like, although some of us in this room, we do know what that's like. But a lot of us do know what it's like to be crippled by something, crippled by sin, crippled by something that's been done to us, crippled by someone else's sin towards us, crippled by a loss, crippled by hurt, crippled by unforgiveness or bitterness or pain or shame. We know, and we may not know what it's like to be an invalid, but we do know what it's like to be feeling invalid. You started maybe to believe today, I'm not valid because of what's been done to me or because of the things I've done. I'm not valid. I'm too far gone. This is just who I am. This is just the way it's always going to be. But hear me on this. If you don't hear anything else in today's message, is that there are no invalid people in God's eyes. There's no invalid in his eyes. There are only people who are incredibly valued in God's eyes. There is a God in heaven today who created you, knows every hair on your head and freckle on your cheek. He sees you. He's with you. He's been pursuing you your whole life. He's been wooing you your whole life, wanting you to have relationship with him. This is the God of heaven, how he looks at you. You are not beyond his reach. You are not too far gone. And if you've ever questioned your validity, if you've ever questioned your value, I just want to encourage you to go back, look at the cross where God said, this is how much I value you. Because last I checked, the price that someone is willing to pay is what determines the value of something, right? And this is what God says, is that you were worth the biggest sacrifice on the planet. You were. So there is no invalid in God's eyes. And yet there was this invalid of 38 years at the pool. Now you might notice something interesting in your Bibles. Go ahead and look at them again real quick. You might even look at the footnotes on this one. This is why it's good to bring in like physical hard copy Bibles sometimes, because you'll see it. You'll see verse 3, and then you'll see verse 5. And there's no verse 4. Often verse 4 is put into the footnotes. You're like, why is it missing verse 4? Verse 4 is likely a later addition to the earliest manuscripts of the text to explain what was happening in verses 3 and 5. Verse 4 wasn't put into the scriptures because verse 4 isn't true. Verse 4 is what people believe to be true. And so the authors didn't want to put that in there to make us think that this actually happened. But this is what everyone believed to happen. So I'm going to now read 3, 4, okay? I'm going to put in 4 and explain why people who were blind, lame, and paralyzed used to hang out at the pool. Check out this in verse 3. So here, a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For, this is what people believed, for an angel of the Lord had went down and stirred up the water at certain times. And whoever first stepped in after the stirring of the water was healed from whatever disease which they suffered. Okay? Now, just to be clear, John is not saying that this is true. That's why it's kind of as a footnote. He's saying this is what the people during that day actually believed about the pool. If I could just get into the stirred waters, and I can be the first one in, I can get healed of whatever thing. I can get some relief of whatever was going on in my life. But it wasn't actually true. It was a myth. It was a legend. It was a made-up story. It was a false hope. And over time, that's why it says in verse 3 that people used to lie there. They used to do it. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed, they used to come to that pool because they heard the story that if the waters get stirred, they can be the first ones to jump in. They might get healed. And so they used to go there hoping to see this event happen. But night after night, day after day, month after month, year after year, nothing happened because it wasn't true. And they used to be there. Now they have left. But there was this one in verse 5 who had been there for a long time, waiting, hoping against hope that he'd get an opportunity, and he was stuck on a mat by a dead pool. Here's where this hits us 2,000 years later. I don't think any of us are like hanging out on mats by random pools, hoping to be restored. But the way we get stuck is the same way. We get stuck when we put our hope in the wrong places. Y'all hear me on this? Here's what I mean by that. We have different stirred waters. If I can just get X, name it, whatever it is. If I can just get this thing, then I will be restored. Then I will be whole. Then my life will be put together. Then I'll be okay. Don't we fall for that lie all the time? That myth, that legend, that false hope? If I could just get, that next promotion, and then we get stuck on a rat race. If I could just get that person in the relationship to love me, and then we get stuck in codependency. If I could just get these people to approve me and find my worth in their applause, well, then we get stuck in people pleasing. Oh, if I could just achieve more, well, then we get stuck looking for love in the things that we do rather than who it is that we are. If I could just get more comfort, if I could just experience that high again, if I could just escape, well, then we get stuck in coping and we get stuck in addiction that we've been dealing with that no one knows that we're dealing with, and we just find ourselves stuck time and time again. Truth is, the reason we're there is because we put our hope in the wrong place. Stirred waters. King Solomon tried it. Read it. Ecclesiastes, one of my favorite books in the scripture. Dude goes after it hard. Like, hey, some of us, we want to go after wealth. He was the wealthiest person on the planet. Some of us, we want to go after it in pleasure. He had all the parties and pleasure you could ever imagine. Some of us, we want to go find it in power. He was the most powerful man in the Middle East. All right, so this guy, he goes after all of it, and he says it was all a chasing after the wind. I went after X and thought it would fulfill me, and it didn't. It was hope in the wrong place, and he found himself stuck. I wonder today, are you stuck? And here's what's wild, is that Jesus goes to that guy. He doesn't go to the guy who's got it all together. He goes to the dude who's stuck for 38 years at the pool on a mat, hoping in the wrong things. Grace. Jesus shows up, verse 6. When Jesus saw the man lying there and learned he had been in the condition for a long time, he says, hey, do you want to get well? Like, Captain Obvious. I mean, I knew you were a prophet and son of God and everything, but like, look, of course, this man wants to be well. He's been waiting at the pool. He's on a mat. Of course he wants to be well. That's a silly question, isn't it? I don't know. Actually, I think Jesus doesn't ask random questions. He asks revealing questions. You want to be whole? That phrase for you want to get well, he's not just talking about a physical healing. It's beyond that. You want to be whole. Do you want to be put together? Do you want that? I have a question for you today. Do you want to be whole? Do you want to get well? You're like, yeah, obvious. Like, that's why I'm here. Obvious question, Daniel. No, I don't know if it is. I think there's a lot of people. By the way, the way we get stuck is when we put our hope in the wrong places. The way we stay stuck is that we don't really want the change that God is offering. Do you really want it? I think we say we want it. But honestly, I think there's things we want more. Let me try on a few, see if they fit. And I'm speaking from the perspective of I know this. I've been there. I know what it's like to be the crippled, paralyzed man. One thing that I wanted more than the change that God was offering is I wanted to not have to admit that I had a problem. Because to admit that I had a problem would be too vulnerable. It would be weakness. It would be neediness. And there was no part of me that wanted to experience that humiliation of admitting that I had needs. So rather than, I wanted to get well, but what I wanted more was not to have to admit that I had the problem that I had. But it's really hard for God to heal the things we're not willing to actually get honest about. Really hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. Really hard. I think some of us, we're in here because, we want to get well, but we're not well. And the reason we're not well is because we're not willing to actually get honest about it. I think the second group maybe in here today is that I want to get well, but what I want more than getting well is I want my comfort. And what's comfortable is doing what I've always done. What's comfortable is I've held on to unforgiveness for 40 years, and I'm going to continue to hold on to unforgiveness because that allows me to have a chip on my shoulder. It allows me to put excuses on everyone else that they're the problem. It allows me to play the victim because this thing happened to me or this person did that. And so now I get to hold on to whatever bitterness that I have, and it's more comfortable for me to live that way than to actually give this over to God and forgive that person. And so the change that you're wanting, you're not actually wanting. You want your comfort more than you want freedom. You're actually more used to living in the prison cell than you are in like free land. Some of us, it's like you're more comfortable with that comfort and that addiction. It's like, you know what? If I have this addiction, well, then I get to act like this and I get to treat my family this way and I get to show up in life this way and that way. And it gives you all the excuses because you have this addiction and now you have excuses. But the moment you change, well, now you don't have that excuse anymore to act that way or be that person, right? You actually have to deal with it and get help. And so that's uncomfortable. And so we say we want the change, but we actually want our comfort more. And I would say the third area this may show up is that we want change, but we're absolutely denying that we have any problem. And you've been going through life thinking, problem? I'm not the one with the problem. They're the ones with the problem. I got no problem. And you might call it a problem, but it's only, it's only once a week. It's only once a month. I don't think about it all that much, and we try to justify it. We're like, I can manage. By the way, is this resonating with anyone, or is this just okay? So I'm just going to manage it. I'm going to keep this under control. And here's what's my question to you today is, how bad does it have to get? until you realize you don't have it under control. Like how many relationships have to be severed for you to realize that you don't have this thing managed? How many sleepless nights are you going to experience until you realize this isn't something that you've got under control, that this, like what you're in is in denial right now. And I just want to love you enough to let you know there's freedom to be had there. God has more for you, but it's going to be really hard for him to get into your life if you're unwilling to actually admit and get honest about what's actually going on in your life. Step one in this whole 12 steps program, which can be really life-changing for a lot of people. It was for me. It's just realizing, step one, my life has become unmanageable. And I'm powerless to change it. And some of us, we just got to get to step one. It's become unmanageable. I can't control it. I can't shape it anymore. Enough sleepless nights. I'm ready for change. I want it more than the comfort. I want it more than denial. I want it more than the humiliation that I'm experiencing. I want change. God has more for us than what we have right now. Check out the response of the man. Jesus is like, hey, my dude, you want to get well? I love this. This is fun. He's like, yeah. So he doesn't even know who Jesus is. He's like, hey, so sir, the invalid replied, look, man, I got no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. And while I'm trying to get in, someone else is going to go down ahead of me. You see just what's happening here? Jesus is asking, do you want to be whole? And he's thinking, well, Jesus, you know what? He doesn't answer the question. He's like, actually, Jesus, what I really want is for you to help me get into the waters. I don't want what you want. I want what I want. And we think that's what Jesus is for us, by the way. That's like a lot of people in the American church. We think, oh, I get Jesus so that I can get more of what I want. That's not the point. That's antithetical. Like, we don't come to Jesus so that Jesus can give us more of the things that are going to give us death and keep us stuck. We come to Jesus because we need Jesus, period. Like, that's the point. Jesus is not trying to get us more of what we want. This guy's missing it. And then everything shifts. I love this. Jesus, in his grace, doesn't try to correct him. He just says to him, hey, how about you just get up? Like, take up your mat. Get walking, bro. And immediately, at once, the man was cured. He picked up his mat and he walked. We know how to get stuck. We know how to stay stuck. But what we really need to know today is how to get free. And how we get free is different than probably what you think. What you probably think is, well, I'll get free when I get my life in order, when I answer it the right way, when I get all my ducks in a row, when I begin to deserve the love of God. No. This dude don't miss this. He did absolutely nothing to earn what was given to him. Did you see that? He answered the question the wrong way. He doesn't even know this is Jesus who was talking to him, and yet Jesus freely gives him a gift called grace and heals him. What this goes to show us, this whole story, how do you get free? Graciousness of God. Grace of God. It's what he wants for us. He did nothing to earn it, deserve it. This was all grace. We're thinking, oh, maybe if I do enough, God will move in my life. And God's like, no, I'll step into your mess no matter where you're at. I'll offer you something you never earned. That's what grace is all about. And notice, Jesus is like, hey, get up so you can now go to the pool. He's like, no, you don't need the pool. What you needed was me the entire time. He gives them 3 commands. Get up. And the man who had been down for 38 years on a stinky mat got up. When Jesus speaks, the impossible becomes possible. He says, take up your mat. Interesting. Why would he take up, well, like leave the gross mat there? No, take up your mat because here's the deal. People are going to see you with your mat and you're not going to have to hide it anymore. God's going to highlight it. He's going to show all the people in your life, hey, the thing that that used to carry me, now I carry it. The person I used to be, I'm no longer anymore. I'm a new creation. I'm a new person. And get walking. Not back to the pool, not back to that dead pool that had no hope. No, get walking into the new future that God has for you. See, this guy wasn't walking back to the pool to get where he needed to go. God knew that grace is going to get us to where he knows we need to be. Doesn't mean we'll never struggle again. Doesn't mean everything's going to be hunky and dory all the time when we meet grace. But it does mean we have a new invitation to be a new person, walk a new way. Now, don't you think after this story, there'd be this massive celebration? Like, what? I don't know. Let's call the guy Bobby, okay? Bobby? Man, Bobby? Bro, I know you. I remember you. You were that guy on the mat. What are you doing with the mat in your hand? Like, if you saw Bobby hanging around, you'd be like, let's celebrate. Let's party. Let's go, Bobby. Worship, all celebration. That's not what happened. There was no celebration for Bobby. Why? Well, because the healing happened on a Sabbath, and then on the Sabbath, you're not allowed to carry mats, apparently. That was a man-made rule. And so here he is on the Sabbath carrying his mat. Keep going in verse 10. This is just as important. The Jewish leaders, the religious folks, said to the man who had been healed, wait a second. It's the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry that mat. You catch that? Man's been stuck for 38 years. God just did a miracle, but all they can see is a mat. Okay. What that tells me is that there's a whole nother kind of stuck out there in the world. There's some people here today, you're stuck in sin, you're stuck in addiction, you're stuck in hurt and pain from the past. And then there's other people here today, and you are stuck in your toxic religiosity and judgmentalism. And rather than seeing all the things that God has done right, all you can do is pick out the thing what's been wrong in that person's life. And don't act like we don't do this. Like, you voted for who? It's like, wait now. Just like this, right? Right? Okay. It's like this toxic judgmentalism that is like seeped in back door. And we know that might be us if that is true. We're able to see other people's mats more than we are able to see the miracles. But I love the response of the man. He says, the man who, well, look, I hear what you're saying, but the man who made me well told me to pick up the mat and walk, so I guess I'm just going to do that. I'm gonna go like trust that one. I'm gonna do the thing that he told me to do. I don't know all your rules yet, but I know this. I couldn't walk, but now I can. I'm gonna listen to the guy who helped me out there. And he still doesn't even know it's Jesus. And then verse 14, this is the end. Later, Jesus found the guy again at the temple. I like how this goes. Like Jesus, his grace doesn't just meet us one time at our lowest. It meets us time and time again. Jesus, surely his goodness and mercy will follow us all our days. Jesus meets him again. This time, though, he's at the temple. He's not at the pool. He's at the temple. For 38 years, this guy would have never been able to go to the temple. Y'all get this? He was unclean. He was an invalid. He would not have the ability to go there. But now he's at the temple. Why is he at the temple? To worship and give gratitude to God. That's why you go to the temple.
which, by the way, is a picture of the church, amen. A bunch of blind, lame, paralyzed, dead people that were brought to life and healed and restored, and we're ready to like worship God and pour out our gratitude to him, right? Okay, like two of us. And so that's what church is. And then Jesus has this final conversation. He says, so, hey, I see that you're well. It's worked out for you. And then this final admonition. This is kind of weird, but it is what it is. Let's look at it. So stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. Be encouraged. Have a great day, Like, what could be worse than 38 years of prison? Well, eternal separation. Jesus is like, hey, love that you're well. Hey, don't go back. Don't go back. Don't go back. Wouldn't it be crazy if this guy took that mat and went back to the pool and decided to lay on the gross mat again for the rest of his life? That would be crazy. And yet, sometimes we go back. Like, hey, you've been set free. You're made well. And we're like, yeah, thank you. I'm going to go back to that thing I was struggling with in middle school. What? What? Hey, there's freedom out there. No, actually, Jesus, thank you, but I'm going to go back to that thing that I was carrying, that shame that I've been carrying. No. Hey, there's freedom out there. No, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back on that mat and just live in my past, live in that unforgiveness, live in that bitterness. No, don't go back. The invitation today is very simple. Step into the pool of God's grace. That's how you get free. And the way you stay free is you just swim in that pool. Swim in that pool of God's grace. It's not something that you will earn. It's something you get to walk in right here, right now, and forever. Now here's the thing. Hebrews 13:8 tells us that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. A.W. Tozer says, anything God has ever done, he can do now. Anything God has done anywhere, he can do here. Anything God has done in anyone, he can do in you. And I just really believe that today. That we're not just studying a miracle, I want to ask for a miracle. And so here's the invitation. If you need miracles today, if you need freedom today, if you have been stuck for way too long, grace is here.